Hi, I'm Molly Brown. I'm a singer, songwriter, artist, and guitarist here in Nashville, Tennessee.
Welcome to The Creative Push, an intimate and diverse artist interview series. Here, artists and makers of all kinds share tips, advice, knowledge, and inspiration that you can learn from. I'm your host, Sherry O'Neill, a photographer, artist, writer, and educator. This is a part of the Learn and Create platform to help artists further their education in creativity, art, and business. Tell me about your creative path as a child. Did you have anyone in your family who was in the music?
I did indeed. Both of my parents actually are musicians. My mom was a jazz pianist and classical pianist and a songwriter as well. And my father was a guitarist and a songwriter and in a band. I don't know if they ever did anything when he was young or if they took off. They were called the Vanilla Doorknobs, I think. There was so much music in the house at all hours of every single day.
You learned how to play guitar at a very young age. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
My dad would strategically place guitars around our house as a kid. Like whatever room that I was like playing in or something like that, he would always make sure that there's a guitar in the corner of a room there. I just picked it up. I actually learned how to play it like upside down and backwards like an idiot. But it was later in life that someone went like, okay, and flipped it around for me. I just loved it. I was playing piano and guitar since I was really, really young.
From that age, what was your earliest stage performance?
You know, you always see rock stars in documentaries and country musicians and stuff like that singing at county fairs. I actually didn't really do any of that. I felt like I kind of kept my little passion secret until like post-puberty or around somewhere around there. And I think it was 7th grade where I performed for the first time for my high school. And I did like acoustic vocal. I think it was like a Michelle Branch song. After that, I was hooked. I was nervous as hell, but it was like the biggest high of my life. So I was somewhere around grade 7, I think.
From there, you went to college at Berklee.
Yeah, I did. I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston. Funnily enough, my mom also went there when she was younger. For me, I went into songwriting and performance. It's really challenging to get in. I still to this day feel like very fortunate that I was accepted into that school. But I knew from a very young age that I wanted to go to that college. We used to get those pamphlets. If you're like an alumni, you get like an alumni pamphlet once every couple months or something like that. And we would get them to our house. And I remember being like 4 and 5 years old and getting one to the house and being like, that's where I want to go.
After college, where did you move to?
Here, right away, Nashville, Tennessee, right away. And that was another thing that also felt oddly predetermined. I knew that ever since I was a kid. Like once I was done with Berklee, that there was no other place but Music City, USA to go and pursue the dream.
And how long have you been in Nashville?
11 years.
You're originally from Canada.
Yeah, I'm from Toronto, Canada. We like to call it the center of the universe.
Who were your influences growing up?
Thanks to mom and dad, we pretty much had a steady stream of Carole King and James Taylor on the stereo. A lot of Jackson Browne, a lot of Neil Young, a lot of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Poets of Tin Pan Alley, and everybody from Laurel Canyon, a lot of Fleetwood Mac, stuff like that. So those to me are at least my strongest like childhood songwriting and musician influences. Obviously your taste kind of changes as you get older. But those are my like core people.
What has been your biggest failure so far?
I gratefully can't think of a bad one, like a really big mess up. Luckily, I don't think I have one of those. I think what I have experienced is just like me, like failing myself, not to get like too deep or too dark or anything like that. But the music industry is just full of question marks and unknowns. And sometimes fear just takes the front seat a little bit. So if I've had really like any massive failures, which I haven't, but if I've like felt anything, it's probably like at my own hand, being a little bit too scared to release music because someone else just did it recently and our songs sound similar, or never feeling like you're quite ready to put yourself out there. And by that account, you hold yourself back a little bit. So I don't know. It's kind of one of those lessons where you need to learn how to kick yourself in the butt a little bit.
Do you feel like you have a style or a technique?
Musically? I do. I've been told by many, many people that I have a very interesting acoustic guitar playing style. I like to play a lot of bass as I play acoustic guitar. So I work really hard with my right hand. A lot of people, especially pickers and electric guitarists, it's their left hands that's going up and down the neck that has all the technique and all the muscle memory. I'm really strong at that. I've been playing for 25 plus years. I'm very, very rhythmic with my right hand, which means that as I'm playing through chords and playing the higher strings and getting some like twinkly noises out of the guitar, I'm also going back like mid-stroke and hitting the lowest strings on the guitar and everything. So I'm trying to basically be a one-man band. It proves to be kind of complicated sometimes, but I do my best to do that. And then when it comes to my singing style and technique, I have a lot of formal vocal training. And I think I've found that only when you get older and only from experience and only from playing on stage for like decades, do you take that formal training and just start to strip yourself back down to nothing, So I've taken everything that I've learned and I've taken the most important parts of how to support my vocals and how to hit all those high notes and how to get really low and breathy and how I change my register every time I do that. But I'm just kind of applying all that knowledge at once and applying kind of like a breathy, cool, rock, edgy tone to it, I guess. Sometimes I sing like I'm a little bit drunk, even when I'm not.
What inspires you or motivates you to create?
Being alone inspires me to create more than I thought it did. And I think that might come from childhood a little bit because I had 2 older twin brothers and it was a noisy house, very noisy house all the time, noisy and screaming and sports and sounds and, video games and all that kind of stuff. And also being the only female, they had a built-in best friend with each other. So if I wanted to play, I had to kind of go be creative and like play make-believe by myself or something. So I think I learned that the most creative that I can become, even from a really young age, was being kind of isolated. When I'm alone, that's when creativity and inspiration really strikes for me. But moving to Nashville here in Music City, they really teach you that creativity is a massive collaborative effort. That's something that I learned at Berklee as well. But here, you got to share your thoughts with 3 or 4 other people in a room to write a song. And that is a very, very vulnerable and trying exercise. Luckily, I've had a lot of experience with it and I'm quite good at it at this point. But I remember first moving here and being like, I have to what with who and how many times a week?
What do you do when you get stuck?
I retreat a little bit when I got stuck. Well, if reaching out to girlfriends and guy friends and songwriters doesn't do the trick, it's usually a matter of me turning inward. I think, like I said before, that's where I think my true, like most authentic creativity lives, is just between me and me. But I experience writer's block quite a bit. I think that's quite normal. I wish I was the kind of songwriter where ideas are just flying in and out of your head at every moment of every day, and you can never not have a pen and a notepad in your hand and stuff like that. And you're always creating something and writing something. I'm not always that person. I can be that person, but it does kind of turn off and on like a faucet sometimes. But when I get stuck, it's kind of the kind of thing where I just have to like put myself in a room and face the facts and talk to myself a little bit and just sit down and noodle on guitar or noodle on piano or something like that and just like connect with myself again.
And what's your biggest struggle?
Distraction, I would say.
Do you think it has to do with all of our devices or is it just in general?
I try not to spend too much time on things like socials. I just know that they're poison for creatives. They really are. The more you're on them, the more you're watching your peers. And you're seeing when they're posting music, you're seeing when they're touring, and all you do, what you're forcing yourself to do is just to compare. And I don't know who said it, but comparison is the thief of joy. And the more you sit on something like socials or a screen or anything like that, the more you're just kind of yanking yourself away from your true spirit and what it is that you want, because you get distracted by other things that are just being sold to you. And I need that from Amazon and I need it right now. Or that girl's doing really well, I should copy whatever it is that she's doing because she got more followers than me this week and all that kind of stuff. So I think distraction is probably the toughest one.
Hey guys, thanks for listening. I hope you're enjoying the Creative Push. It sure would help if you'd consider supporting this podcast with a small monthly donation to help sustain the work and time it takes for me to produce future episodes. You can click the support button, or you can click the link below in the show notes. Any support is greatly appreciated, and you can cancel at any time. Either way, I'm glad to have you here. Please subscribe and share. Now let's get back to the show. What do you see in your future?
I actually have a very specific vision for my future, and I saw it. It was weird. I don't know if it came to me in a dream or a mushroom trip or something like that. But I have a vision of myself in my 40s and 50s, and I'm touring, and I've got my fiance playing lead guitar for me. And my band is of friends that I've had since I was in my 20s and 30s. And we had just closed out the show, and I was looking like really healthy and really happy. And we had all just walked off stage, and we were all just hanging backstage and celebrating. And I had that vision when I was really young. And the weird thing is that, like, I remember looking at myself back then and being like, whoa, older me looks crazy. And now I look at myself and I kind of look like that. I don't know if I was able to predict the future back then, but my vision is longevity and integrity and authenticity. And I just want to have a career like someone like Bonnie Raitt, or, someone like James Taylor, someone like Carole King, who is touring and just having a very low drama lifestyle well into their 60s and 70s and 80s, and still just drawing crowds and crowds and crowds and crowds of people and selling tickets like no other. I'm not in it for a short time. I'm in it for the long haul. So, yeah.
Is there anything that you'd like to learn that you haven't learned yet?
That is a really good question. I'm quite a solid guitar player, but I would like to know how to absolutely shred at guitar, and just shock the hell out of people on stage when all of a sudden I traded my acoustic for a Gibson SG or something like that, and then melt some faces. That would be a fun little party trick. I'd love to learn how to engineer a recording session. I'm decently good at it right now, but I'd want to be a pro one day so I can just run all of my own sessions. I'm okay at drums. I'm kind of a jack of all trades, so I can play a lot of instruments, but not necessarily all of them very well,
How do you market your work?
I don't think I know how to market myself in any other way than just being a really honest, kind of messy human being. One who definitely drops some curse words in her songs, and one who isn't afraid to say something a little bit too dark or a little bit too raw or a little bit too emotional in a song. I've always kind of had an issue with filtering myself in that manner. And truthfully, as an artist, like I talked about earlier, comparing yourself to others and seeing everybody else's PR plans and management plans for their artistry and their music releases, you can tell, and the general public can tell, when a marketing, scheme doesn't match the artist or the music or something like that. You can tell when they're really, really done up physically, and they've got a really prim and proper voice when it comes to what's on their record. But then you actually hear them, you see them live, and you hear them speak in between songs, and you're like, that doesn't match. Yeah. That doesn't match up. Whatever I plan to do for my future and all my future marketing and releases and stuff like that, I just wanted it to be the most unapologetically authentic thing possible. Because I think that's just what works. People don't want to be BS'd. It's 2024,
Do you use social media a lot to do your marketing?
I do.
And do you have a specific platform that you prefer?
I prefer Instagram. I prefer having a visual tool. For me, I'm a very deep creative other than music as well. I also love to paint. I love to draw. I love photography and even graphic design. I did that for a long time as well. It's just where everyone's hanging out too, you know?
What advice would you offer someone just starting out as a musician or a songwriter in the industry?
Ooh, one, get some lessons. You know, me being someone who is technically trained in all of my instruments and my voice and songwriting and production and performance, that you can't put a value on that. You really can't, because if you come into this industry, maybe you've had a couple of yes people in your life saying, oh, you should move to Nashville. You should definitely become an artist and a singer. Just because you're kind of okay at it, you're going to get ego checked really fast the moment you walk into the door here and realize that everyone in this town is better than you. You just have to be okay with understanding that you might suck at first. But if you're willing to practice extremely hard and get better at it, your chances of success are so much higher than they are if you weren't doing that. And if you were sitting in your ego and being like, I'm fine, I know how to play acoustic well enough, I'm fine. It's like, no, there's so many people in this town who can't sing and perform their own songs. They don't know how to play them on an instrument. And that's just not me. I want to be the best. I do it pretty much everything. That's my narcissism kicking in. So I think another piece of advice I would have, you know, tying it back a little bit to the how to market yourself, is just be yourself. And I know that sounds really corny. There's no more room on this planet for the same regurgitated thoughts and the same type of love songs and the same type of production and the same lyrics and everything. Like, if you have something to say, especially something different to say in an original voice, you should say it. And you should not let someone, higher ups, gatekeepers, anybody in the industry, even your friends and your peers, to mold you into anything other than what you are. Authenticity all the way.
Walk me through an average day as Molly Brown in with your music and your creativity as an artist.
Yeah, it's not as glamorous as it looks, or as you might expect for a musician. I'm a bad sleeper, so I do not wake up at the ass crack of dawn like everybody else. I roll out of bed at like 10:30, 11 most days, but to be fair, I also work really late. Depending on the week, the day, how busy my month is, a lot of my days, you know, start like everybody else with like a caffeinated beverage and breakfast. And then typically if I have a co-write, I like to do those starting at like 11 or 12. My brain is still fresh at that time of day. It's a good time of day for everybody to drive around and everybody to meet each other. So I typically like to write and work until about 4 p.m. And then again, depending on the day, sometimes 4 p.m. onward, that's kind of when you're shifting into like evening gig mode and stuff like that. So I do actually play quite often in Nashville. I play on Broadway, you know, and I play these really, really tough 4-hour long gigs. Yeah, so I play on Broadway a ton, and those are really, really tough gigs. Those are 4 hours long, typically just you acoustic. And you are competing with so much noise, so many full bands downstairs across the street. You're watching those pedal taverns going by, and a bunch of woo girls and bachelorettes are screaming at the top of their lungs. They're like barfing over the side of rooftops and stuff like that. So you got to have your chops up for that. So I always make sure to rest and warm up before, because if you go in there cold, your instrument, you're going to blow out your voice. You're not going to be as sharp on guitar. And if I don't have a Broadway gig or something like that, or I don't have an original set, or I'm not playing at the Bluebird or something like that, I do a lot of vocal sessions. I do vocals and background vocals for people for hire and lead vocals.
You record studio. You do studio
Sure
sessions.
do. We've got a home studio at home, and I do like massive background vocal packages for people, and I tune them and I comp them and I edit them and I send them off, and I just send everything off digitally. And I've had clients from literally all over the world who find me online and ask me to sing on their stuff. So I typically like to do that at nighttime. Which is not convenient for Tom, who's like trying to sleep, and I'm like belting my ass off in the music room.
Where can people find your music?
Of course, Spotify, Apple Music, Instagram, stuff like that. The interesting thing about me right now is that it's been a minute since I released original music. And that's been because I have been very fortunate enough to be touring and working with and playing guitar and doing background vocals for a lot of other people and not really focusing on myself. If you want to find me right now, you can listen to some kind of older stuff. I have a record that I'm very proud of called The High Road. I did a Kickstarter for that, actually. It's like a GoFundMe, like a crowdfunding campaign. And it went viral on that website, and I raised a lot of money to produce and record my very first album. You can find that. I'm still really, really proud of that. That's like a country rock record. That's anywhere that music is available. I've got a couple singles out too, and this year, starting this fall, late summer, I'm finally going to have music out again. My first single is called How Do You Live With Yourself? It's been a long time coming, and I'm kind of excited to reintroduce the world to me as a more mature artist and someone who's a little bit more geared toward rock and Americana and saying what she really wants to say and not holding anything back. So look forward to that in the future.
Well, thank you so much for being on the Creative Push.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been really fun.
As always, my intention is to offer inspiration that excites you to want to get out there and create something amazing. Be sure to check out some of the other episodes. There's more information below in the show notes, including links to other great stories, tips, and resources. Drop me a message or comment at any time, and I hope that you'll sign up and be a part of this creative tribe. Until next time.